Thank you and welcome to this channel. Today, the cabinet nominees are being vetted by Parliament, and the first person to appear was Kithuke Kindiki, the CS nominee for security. Before the Ruto dissolved his cabinet, Kindiki was the CS of internal security, and he has been appointed to the same position. One thing to note is that for the past 2 years, Kindiki has claimed that he made 150 million Kenya shillings in his business. Well, when other Kenyans have been going negative, companies has been closing down, Kindiki has been made in gain. This puts a lot of question as to his credibility. Will he disclose his source of income, where he gets his money? And normally lawyers, they have confidentiality accounts. That's where some funds are kept for them, even if they are bought through illegal means. It's hard to tell whether Kindiki is saying the truth or whether he's lying. But such an amount is too huge to make in 2 years. We don't know how much he'll make now that he'll be appointed again. We don't know if the Gen Z might come up with another protest and send the cabinet packing again.
I have also been asked about my wealth, which has increased from 544 million to 694 million. It is true because, first, let me start by saying that I have not benefited from any improper business. I have not done any business with government. Let's start from there. I have not applied for any tender by myself, by proxy, by relative, or by anybody. Mr. Speaker, before I was appointed, my wealth was at 544 million. I said at that time, which I still do now, that I've run a business, which today I do not participate in that business. I don't practice law, but my law firm is alive and working, and much of that revenue has actually come through the revenue from my law firm, which is still active but being managed by other people. I think all my salary and allowances have been spent in paying bills.
Deborah Mulongo was the second to be interviewed by the Parliament, and her estimated wealth is 455,845,320 Kenya shillings. This cabinet seems to be of wealthy people, against what President William Ruto promised during his elections campaign, the bottom up, to lift the small mwananchi. By the end of this vetting process, we don't know how much the valuation of the cabinet secretaries will be. Let's see and let's look at how this process will go. Here is a clip of Deborah Balaza being interviewed by Parliament.
A few formal questions. Order members, a few formal questions. Do you hold any leadership position in any political party?
No.
Have you ever been adversely mentioned in any integrity-related report or investigation?
No, Honorable Chair.
What is your net worth in terms of wealth?
Okay. So my net worth is a combination of mine and my husband, and it's 455,845,320.
You and your husband?
Yes.
Honorable members,
The Court of Appeal rejected the 2023 Finance Bill. Prior to that, the 2024 Finance Bill was entirely rejected by the Gen Zs, which compelled Ruto to withdraw. Even we are yet to come to terms with that, the 2023 Finance Bill has been again declared by the courts to be null and void in its entirety. Remember, 2024 bill was the second finance bill for President William Ruto. Technically, does it mean this government has been declared unfit, since all the finance bills since it came to power have been rejected? President William Ruto now needs to go to the drawing board and question himself about the legitimacy of his government. Even in parliament still, we had members of parliament who are debating about the bills. And it's time we introduce qualifications as to who is a member of parliament, because these are two members of parliament discussing about the finance bill, but from the way they are approaching it, it's from a different angle. Here are the two clips, and later it will be followed by Okiya Omtata, the person who went to court for the finance bill. As of now, we have been taken back to the finance bill of 2022 that is now still in effect. President William Ruto's government will face a lot of challenges before we reach to the 2027 elections. Remember, the parliament was stormed by the citizens. Therefore, they have no faith in parliament, and it is the same parliament that passes the bills. Will William Ruto survive with this government in terms of passing bills? Here are the clips.
Speaker, I've had my colleagues complain here of the court decisions. I'm not a lawyer, but I've heard something either the courts or the judges are blind. And they go by the letter of the law. And those laws are made by this House. If you're in a situation, Mr. Speaker, where courts are increasingly finding the laws that are made in this House unconstitutional, where does the blame lie? As much as we would blame the courts, we must first of all look at ourselves. Do we scrutinize the laws that we make adequately? So that how do they become unconstitutional? And they have passed through the legal system in parliament, and then they have passed through parliament, through the committees of parliament, which have legal advisors, and then the courts actually find them unconstitutional. I think the blame starts with us, Mr. Speaker. And I know in this parliament, we have had recently where we have come with this thing of put the question, and people very quickly with the majority passed the law without listening to people, without discussion. The dictum that the minority will have their say and the majority will have their way is extremely important, Mr. Speaker, because the view of the minority may sometimes help situations where important issues would have been missed. So it is important that members of this House are allowed to put points, even when we're in a hurry. Sometimes it sounds like instructions to pass laws quickly. I think therein lies the problem that we may be blaming the courts for. Thank you, Mr.
Why don't every person stick to their own role? As we come here to make laws, but immediately we do that, the judiciary find it fit to go and annul everything that we have done here. So what is the point of having this House? If everything we are going to be passing in this House, they are going to be finding it not fit to be part of the laws that we pass in this parliament. I would say every person to stick to their own duties. And if the judiciary really want the parliament not to exist, we need to start by cutting on their budget. Because if we don't give them money, if they feel the pinch and the heat of us not giving them money, then they'll make sure when they are making rulings, they know those rulings affect the entire nation. So where they sit, if they can wake up in the morning, they have fuel in their car and they have salaries, they don't care of the rest of the Kenyan citizen. That one is very wrong.
Yeah, in my view, Ruto must go. Because what is the grounds for removal of a president? Inability to govern. One of the grounds. And Ruto is unable to govern. Resetting him to 2022, whose budget was that?
It was his and Uhuru's.
Yeah, that was Uhuru's budget. Uhuru was the president. He alikuwa spare wheel. Uhuru was the president. Now, his budget is now supposed to be spending. We are supposed to be in the. We should be executing his third budget. The one inherited from Uhuru, the one implemented in the 2021.
Yeah.
Because Uhuru virtually from June 30th, 2023 was basically a lame duck, just holding for somebody. So then who implemented that budget. The second one was the one that was 2023, the Finance Act that has been rejected by the courts. And the third one is the one that was rejected by the public. So if he cannot pass a budget, he's unable to govern. Because the only policy document you have in a government is a budget. So if your budgets are rejected twice, you lose legitimacy to govern. He cannot govern, and that's one of the grounds in the Constitution for removal of a president. So when you say Ruto must go, it's not an idle call. It's a call that this country needs somebody who can govern it. You've heard what our sister has said, that going back to 2022 is going to get a lot of complications. You see, why should a republic end up in complications? So the consequences of this decision are dire. And now the call to reset the republic has been given anchorage in law by the courts determining that the budget of 2023 was null and void. And they have used the word ab initio. Parliament has budget-making powers, but the budget-making powers in Parliament have been corrupted.
Yeah.
Both by design of the executive and whatever. One of the things is that this budget is supposed to come to the Senate. If you look at Article 249, Clause 3 of the Constitution, it expressly states that Parliament shall ensure that constitutional commissions and independent officers are adequately funded. The only budget-making process is under Article 220 and 221. There's no other special mechanism. So when the Senate does not participate in it, Article 249 is violated. And that's then a failure of the system. So for me, Parliament approved, that's the National Assembly, is that which approved that budget. And the National Assembly has entered into bed with the executive that they don't bring the budget to the Senate